So today we want to talk about a different kind of energy. Um, we want to talk about emotions, and more specifically, how emotions relate to our physical health and our physical well-being. And basically, I just said that it's a different kind of energy, and that's exactly what emotions are. They are a form of energy. And emotions, actually, the word means energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes.
this is a really critical, important concept, because the energy in motion, that's literally what it is. So that's literally the essence of this energy. It wants to be in motion. Well,
Mm.
basically, all energy always wants to be in motion, right? Like we all know, we've heard a word or two about Einstein, like energy is always conserved. But it just moves. Like, there's conservation of energy. It just moves from one place to another place, from one form to another. So it's never just dissipated like that. It doesn't just disappear. It's just, it moves, it transmutes, it changes from one form to another. And so that's what we needed to allow to do. If we have a certain form of energy, then if we no longer want to have it within our field, we can just believe that it's just gonna be gone just like that. We need to allow it to move.
That's so good. I like that. I like that word allow. No. And sometimes we, as people, we have a little difficulty of allowing it to move because we have a tendency also to get attached to energy. Because energy, of course, has things. Things are made of energy. So sometimes we get attached to things. Like I have some attachment to some things right now. I need to get rid of some stuff in my house that are just sitting there as stuck energy. And I need that energy to just keep on moving, but there's this attachment part that, what if I need this one day? Or, what if I can give this to somebody right now? I don't know who to, but, so those kind of things, but just allowing that energy that we're not using, allowing it to move. And then more specifically today, we wanted to talk about some energy that gets stuck in our body.
Yeah.
So that's the dis-ease. So stuck energy forms this ease in our body. Our body is in constant movement of energy. There's all these frequencies going on in every single cell of our body. Our organs have a certain frequency from one another, and there's constant movement of those energies. And so how does the energy get stuck in our body? What do you think, Claire?
Wow. Kirsi, first of all, actually, I really like what you just talk about the house, because to me, that's a really, really good analogy, actually. It's like our body. It's like, somebody gives something to you, or like there's something really old and you're like, I don't really need it. Like, it's not really, what I need or use or think about every day. Like, it's somewhere in the far bag of my cupboard. But, I might want to look at that at some point in the future, or somebody else might need that. Or like, it's plain and simple. It's just like, I just don't really want to deal with that right now. So I don't even want to look at that, but I don't even want to deal with that. So I'm just going to put it somewhere far back in that cupboard, and I'm just going to forget about it. And then, I can just go on with my life. But like really what it's doing, it's taking up, space in your house. It's clogging up your house. It's collecting dust. And it's like, the energy can't move. It's like, it's not very nice. Right. And so and I could actually talk about this, about, energy and spaces and clutter, and how that really has a very tangible effect on us. Again, it could be a whole other topic, but now let's just, transpose that onto the body. And that's oftentimes what we do with experiences and emotions that happen to us. We're just like, yeah, like basically what happens is, as we said, energy is constantly moving, and energy is not just created or, destroyed. It just moves, right? And transmutes and changes form. So what happens, like when we get an emotion, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's like usually, somebody screams at you or somebody hits you or something happens. Like there's a form of energy that hits your system, right? Like something happens in the world and it hits you in a certain way. And some people might not have a reaction, it just flows through them. But maybe you will really feel a hit by that energy. It goes right into your core, and that energy creates an emotion in you. So now, like, the energy has been, at least part of it, it has gone through you, it has gone on the inside, and it has been, transformed into some sort of an emotion on the inside. So now it's, inside of you. And because of, how we've been educated and what we've been taught, that we shouldn't cry, it's not good to be angry, it's not good to feel this or that way, we try to, suppress it. We're like, no, I'm not angry. We try to be the good girl, good boy, not to express our anger. We try to even hide our anger from ourselves, pretending that everything's okay to everybody else, but also to ourselves, right? When we're sad, we're just like, no, I'm fine. Like, you toughen up and you never cry. Like, you're just, I'm good. Like, yeah, put a smile on your face, go out to be happy. Don't let anybody see that you're not very well. And so what happens is that the energy gets stuck inside, like this emotion, because emotion is energy in motion. So it wants to move, but we don't allow it to move. So what happens with little children, before they're told, don't cry, don't scream, be a good girl, behave, sit nicely in place, don't jump around, just stay steady. What happens is, these kids, before that happens, like their systems are very fluid, right? Like they just have one emotion, then they cry, and the next second they're laughing around, and the next minute they're angry because somebody, stepped on their toe, and then they're screaming, but then they're, they scream, and then they're happy again, and they're laughing again, because the energy in motion is just moving, it's just flowing through them. And as soon as it moves, they're good. Like it's no longer in them, it moved away, right? But we as adults usually struggle to do that because, of all the societal rules and beliefs, we just don't allow ourselves to do that. And so the emotion gets stuck. And when we never release it, when we don't find a way, an outlet to release it, it gets stuck and it gets stuck. And the next time, something gets stuck, and the next time something gets stuck. And we never allow ourselves to release it. And so the energy is no longer in motion. It's like, and that's actually what happens when people are depressed. It's like, what is the meaning of the word depressed? Like depression, it's like you press and press and press until it's like so pressed down that no more energy can move. Right. And so that's why people who are depressed, they're so sluggish and slow and tired and move slowly, and they have, no motivation to do anything whatsoever, right? They just want to rest because there's no energy moving in that system because it's all so clogged up.
Right. And it's so interesting because the antidote to depression is to go and help other people. Go and put out energy.
Put out some energy.
Freely. Don't expect nothing back because you already have so much. There's no room to receive. So just give. And that's, a lot of people have found much healing to depression. Just start volunteering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really good point on that. Yeah. So yeah, that's so good. That's exactly what happens in our body when we cannot, there's too much energy. That's how trauma happens. So, and we have little traumas, and then we can have big traumas. So a little trauma in a child can be for example, they're reaching to the parent and the parent is constantly just going away because she's busy. So they have a need and that need is not met. So then they collapse to the floor. You know, we're talking about real little kids. They collapse to the floor and they get this response of neglect and response of rejection. So it's really these like a lower frequency energies that then start affecting the body. So this can be the little trauma. So then we can have big trauma where actually something has happened, whether it's a child or an adult, any age of a human being, where, you know, there's some really bad incident that happened. You know, maybe you see a car accident and, you know, it's close a friend or whatever, and, you know, they get into a really bad state. That's a trauma that can get stuck in your body because there's not somebody who is bringing you support, for example. You know, support is a huge thing in where stuck energy happens. You don't have the support, you don't have understanding, you don't have reflection there to deal with that amount of energy that comes at you. So there you're alone with that energy. So you go into fight or flight mode. So what happens is you just go into a pattern that is most familiar to you, whether it's you kind of check out, get disconnected from your own body, and that energy gets stuck there because there's no reflection, there's no understanding, there's no safety. So you get disassociated, or you go within yourself and you just decide there's nobody here, I'm just going to hide. Or you can go into fight mode. And so then you still have that stuck energy there, but you're in such a fight and flight mode that you are in survival. So you're not dealing with that energy that got stuck in your body. You're actually in surviving. And you can get stuck in any one of these stages of protecting yourself. And then the energy is over there. The energy is kind of like forgot because you start protecting your system. You know, your system, we talk about a body is a system. So your body is hit with this energy of trauma, whatever that trauma is, and you go into the protection of that body. And so to come back to that energy that is stuck there, you need to come back to safety, need to come back to support, and you need to start gaining understanding. And when you do all that, it's like coming back to that moment of trauma. This can happen next week of the incident. This can happen years later of the incident. It can happen, it may happen that it never happens, unfortunately, you know. So awareness of these things is the first of all, the main thing, in my opinion. You know, like we're talking about these things right now, that brings awareness to us, that brings awareness to our listeners. So yeah, that's kind of what was coming through right now.
Thank you for that, Kirsi. Thank you for, so you set up the framework very, very nicely now for our listeners. But I would like to now bring it a bit more to like more concrete and maybe more trivial matters, because for a lot of people, you know, who are completely new to this kind of work and like school of thought or whatever, trauma can be a very big word. And even though you sort of did very well, like you did make that distinction between the big trauma and the little trauma, but I am aware that still a lot of people have an issue with this word, and they think like, oh, that's not something that pertains to me, and like, you know, so what does that have to do? I just wanted to know a little bit about emotions, like why do we have to talk about trauma? So I think it's very important that Kirsi now sort of, you know, put that sort of framework forward, but now I would like to sort of explain how, it's like, even if we just put all that terminology and all these things in childhood aside, even though it definitely, I have to tell you, definitely plays a role and it's very important, but even if we just forget about that for a second, it can, usually it's really how it happens. Like there's usually, charge already that starts to happen from our childhood, and there's all these patterns, and like, there's certain emotions that we, like, for example, some people, like Kirsi said, some people get really angry and they start fighting. So like they know how to express some emotions, like they have no issues expressing anger, but they cannot express some other emotions like love or fear or sadness, right? Like you will always see them screaming and fighting, but you will never see them crying, right? So there's still some sort of a blockage. And so that's what Kirsi was talking about, that people have these patterns oftentimes that, there's like, there can be a certain movement of energy, and so that has to do with emotion or not expressing emotion. So some people have more movement with these emotions, some people less, but just overall, as she very nicely depicted, like most of us, have some like different holding patterns and different like perceptions and coping strategies when a big wave of emotion hits us, right? But it also doesn't have to be a lot of emotion. It can just be something small that made us sad, and we just don't allow ourselves to grieve it properly. We just don't allow ourselves to even acknowledge that we're feeling sad, right? Like how many times something happens and you're like, that's okay, right? Like whenever you say, oh, I'm fine, like, are you really fine? Like, how are you really doing, right? Like, what are you really feeling, right? It's like, that's okay, I'm fine, I'm good, like no problem, like I'll get over it, right? Like, or we even tell other people, like, just get over it, like man up, like, like don't be, and we use all like, don't be, like we tell people like all these horrible words when they just like, they just need to be sad and grieve a little bit, right? And we just tell them to just get over it. So that's how emotions get stuck. So what I would like to talk about is how this stuck energy essentially can create problems in our physical bodies. And there's tons and tons and tons of different ways how different, physical issues and discomfort and pain and stiffness and disease, either like, clinical diagnosable disease, but also all these like different things that, there's people who go and see the doctor and get all things tested and they never find anything and they're still struggling and they just don't know what's wrong with them. So my own personal belief, and I'm not going to force that on anyone, but my own personal belief is that every physical ailment is at least partially psychosomatic. Now, what does the word psychosomatic means? It means that it's, connected to your psyche. So it's connected to what's going on in your mental space and in your, emotional, physical, psychological landscape. So usually when people are sick or when they're unwell, usually, they're not otherwise like the happiest, most chilled out, relaxed, enlightened people on planet Earth. Like, and I mean, who is, to be honest, right? Like we all have our own things and challenges and traumas and right? So like we're all humans, right? In this life, and life happens to us. But there is actually what I found absolutely fascinating. I recently read a book by Gabor Maté, who is a Canadian doctor, I believe, scientist, psychologist, something like that. And he actually speaks about this, and he's like the one who makes this distinction between, trauma, big trauma, little trauma. And he actually worked like with doctors, and he did like, studies in hospitals and like really worked with like cases of people. And he actually writes in the book that actually like the doctors and the nurses in like a hospital where he was doing his studies, like they would all know and agree that like there was like a certain case of like some, incurable or like very, bad, like dangerous autoimmune disease, and that all the patients who had this disease, they were like unbelievably nice, like way too nice, basically. It's like every single person, and they were like all women, and it's like every single lady was just like way too nice, right? And so the connection was that they all had like, you know, they were like very like good girls, right? Like docile, like subservient, like not asserting themselves, living for everybody else and not
Mhm.
taking care of themselves. And that basically they all had like this completely like suppressed subconscious like amount of rage and anger that they weren't even consciously aware of themselves, because you know they just believed they were like the nicest lady on planet Earth, and it's like I'm in peace with everyone, and you know like I'm just a good little girl. And
Mm.
actually it's like that. So there's like definitely, you know, like from my perspective there's definitely a connection between, you know, like the emotions that we have and that oftentimes we are not even consciously aware of. It's not just that like we're like pushing it down, it's like I'm fine, but like for many
Mm.
people they don't actually even know what's like, you know, like it's like they just like it's like what's like, you know, the tip of the iceberg, and like everything that's underneath that, like that's just you know, that's like how what like Jung was saying also, right? Like it's like everything is in the subconscious, like we don't even know it's there because
Yeah.
it's trying to protect us.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a pattern, you know, like I have that kind of it's so funny that you bring this up. We did not talk, did we talk about this today? I talked about this with another friend of mine today, you know, that I was just telling them that I recognize that I have this good girl pattern,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and a good girl pattern, you know, a person who like me, you know, always being a good girl, you know, just bring out the best of me, you know, just show people I'm good. And, you know, then it's very hard for someone like me to get angry.
Oh yeah. Tell me about that. What's
Yes.
anger anyways? I don't know that. I don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? No, no, you can't do that. No, that's wrong. You
Mm.
know, you'll go to jail if you get angry. You know, that's dangerous. You know,
Oh
police will
yeah.
come and get you, you know, whatever. So yeah, so anger is a huge amount of energy, of course. And so a pattern like mine, I have learned to protect myself from that kind of energy,
Mm.
that huge amount of energy. So I've swayed away to this nice girl, always good girl, you know, please this, you know, please the teacher, please the mom, please the dad, please the, you know, next person. And then the next thing, what happens, you start attracting people who are needing your help. So
Mm.
then you're even a better person because you're helping everybody.
Oh
And
yeah.
if there's a change in that person who you're helping, then you're really a good person. So there's like this ego that gets to be built around this whole concept of this pattern. But then there's that energy that is stuck there somewhere in hiding. And there comes a time, whether it's now or later, where something breaks through that mountain right there and gets into that core of that lava in there. And that's huge, but that's the amount of energy. Oopsie.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
did I lose you?
No, you're good.
Okay, let me put my phone on
No worries.
airline mode because that, yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting that you brought up that.
Well, I'm loving that you're talking about anger. So let's talk a little bit more about anger. Now I have a little
Let's
story for
do.
everyone, which is so for me, I thought I had no anger basically my whole life. And I've actually like I went to a retreat 3 years ago, and we were supposed to do an anger release practice, and like everybody was like put on a little mat and like given a few pillows, and they were like, you can like smash those pillows and scream into those pillows, or like, you know, there's like different ways you can go about it, like you can hit it this way, or you can hit like use the pillow to smash the thing, or you can use your fist to smash the pillow, you can scream, or you can, they were like, you can even fuck the pillow, like some people like that. Like I was like, okay, like whatever. And so like, we go into the exercise and everybody's like, "Wah!" And I'm just like trying like to smash the pillow, and I'm like, this feels fake. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm just forcing myself to do this. Like, I don't feel like doing this. Like, I have no anger. Okay, like this is weird. And then I was like taught once again, like, almost a year later to do that. And it was the same thing. I was like, yeah, like smash some pillows, like whatever. Like, I don't have any anger. And then fast forward like 2 years later, I, was in a different place in my life and in my own, like, self-awareness and self-knowledge. And I was reading this book and I was like, oh fuck, I have so much anger. And it was just so right. And so I just came to my awareness, and it's like what Kirsi was saying before. It's like you just, it's like you push it underneath, like you just like you just bury it so deep inside. Some people, right? Like some people, they have no issues with anger, right? They just like, but for me and people like me, or Kirsi was saying, it's like it feels dangerous. It feels like no, like it's like life threatening. We could go to jail or whatever, right? Like it's just impossible because it feels so unsafe to express any anger or discontent whatsoever. And so, then I like discovered my own sort of anger release practices. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh, like it feels really good to smash some pillows or to scream into some pillows, or you can like stand in front of a wall and like channel, like, just like hold the wall and just like channel some of that energy into the wall to just like sort of get it out from your chest, because it's like where a lot of it can like come up, and just like you can like channel it out from your chest away. So that's really good. Thank the wall afterwards, because it's taking that energy away from you. So make sure you thank it when you're channeling all that through. But so today, what I would like to talk about is how these emotions can actually manifest in your bodies. So I've always had a lot of tension in my muscles, like in my, in my like upper back, and I've always had a lot of back pain. And I went to see a dentist like 2 or 3 weeks ago because I've been having a lot of pain in my jaw. And like, I was like, why is my, like, when you look at my face, like it's not even round, like it's like literally square. It's like, I was like, why is my face look so fat? Like, do I have a tooth infection? Like, is my jaw like swollen, because like because like what's wrong with my, and then I saw like, it was actually when we did that last live, and when I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, like this side of my face is so much bigger than this one. So that's how I realized. And I was really scared. I was like, I think I have an infection here. I need to see a doctor tomorrow. So I went to see the dentist. And before I even sit down on the chair, she looks at me and she's like, I don't know if you have an infection, but just from looking at you, your like jaw muscles, your jaw is so pronounced that I think like it looks like your jaw muscle is very like worked out. So it seems to me that you're like squeezing and tensing and grinding your teeth at night. And I was like, I don't do that. Like, for sure, no, like, not me, right? And then she opens my mouth and she's like, see, like, you grind your teeth from side to side at night. Like, you have like bites on your, like, on the inside of your cheeks and like this and that. And I was horrified. I was like, what the heck? I was like, I like meditate, I have my anger release practices. I scream into pillows every now and then. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm taking care of myself, right? Like, she's like, yeah, it's like a way to process stress. So like make sure, to like do something about it. And I was like, no, like you don't get it. Like I work on my stress consciously when I'm awake. Like I do my meditations, I do all my practices, I do my exercise. Like I don't need to process my stress subconsciously at night. So she said, she thinks it's stress, but for me personally, I'm pretty sure it's not stress. It's like that suppressed anger, because, even though I've done my anger release practices and all that, like there's just so much of that because of every single time, right? And here's when it comes to like what Kirsi was talking about that like small trauma. So it's like we understand trauma as something big that happened to us, that it's like unspeakable and we cannot even, we should not be playing around and, and like treat this word lightly. So this is like the small trauma, which is like, it can be something so insignificant that like to one person or like one child, they wouldn't have even blinked, but another child happens to be sensitive to that. and it can scar them for the rest of their lives, that like, it's like some energy gets stuck, right? And it's like not expressed, it doesn't get processed, so it creates like a little scar. And then whenever something slightly similar happens for the rest of their lives, it's like more energy gets like, goes to that place where it's stuck, and it just accumulates, and it's like every time it's like and because like that the trauma is like a piece of, it's like an experience that has not been integrated. It's like there's like this ball of this energy that's like alienated within our system, and it's like this energetic blockage. And it can literally, be like a physical blockage, like in your muscle, right? It's like people who are really tense, it's like energy is not flowing, right? Like blood is not flowing, right? Like the blood is like the life force, right? So it's things are not flowing, and it can start creating pain and stiffness, and it can start creating like physical discomfort and actual disease. And so, and like for me, it's like, okay, like, like I have more anger work to do, because what happens is that I don't just have, a big phase and like pain in my jaw, but like it creates headaches. And I've been having headaches, like not headaches, but like this light like head pressure for the past 2 years. And like my neck is always incredibly stiff. And I was like, is it my pillow? Like, what am I doing? Like, why is my neck and my back and my like traps and shoulders so stiff all the time, right? And so I happened to post about this on like Instagram stories, and like people reached out to me, like 2 people reached out to me saying like, yeah, I do that, it's so bad, there's nothing that helps. Like one girl even told me she had to have surgery, and she's like, I don't know, there's no help, like I don't know what to do, like there's no help for this, like I've tried everything. And I was like, anger release? And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm
Right.
like, well, would you consider yourself somebody who doesn't really get angry? And she was like, I guess that does describe me. Like, why are you saying that? And so I started talking about this a little bit, and she was like, oh my God, like I would have never, ever, ever thought there could be a connection. And I'm like, well, this is my opinion, but if you ask me, there's always a connection with what goes on in our emotional and like, mental
Right.
world
Yeah.
and lives, right? So and so there's just like and now I'm like starting to see all these cases of people who are like having these physical issues, and they go to see doctor after doctor after doctor, and they just can't find anything, right? Because they just and it's so for me it's I don't know, I guess I just really wanted to do this live and like talk about this, because I would just like to have like help people to be aware of this, that when you have something and you just can't find the root cause, like start asking yourself, like, where in my life am I not expressing myself, or what's bugging me? Like, or, if you're like, where do I feel stuck? If you have some stuckness in your system, right? Like, we could talk about digestion, right? Like, I've had so many digestive issues in my life. And it's like, like when you're not digesting something, like literally ask yourself, like, what am I not digesting in my life? Like,
Right.
what sort of an experience or emotion or person am I not digesting? What can I just not metabolize in my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just like you mentioned earlier, the psychosomatic disorders that we carry in our bodies. So they come, in my opinion, from those energies that we have not digested. So it's an undigested energy, so to say. And a lot of times it has, in my opinion, it's connected to shame, guilt, anger, those kind of lower frequency energies. So we want to keep them hidden. And almost like, when you were talking about your experience in the dentist, so that kind of has, if I may, with your permission to go back to that. So it kind of has this coloring of, the dentist says, yeah, you have this muscle, you're biting during the night. Oh, no, 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 I don't do that. I do this, that, and the other. I got this. No, I don't do that. But it's like, hey, now we have revealed something that's been in hiding because you do it during the nighttime, so you're actually trying to process that hidden energy during the
Yeah.
nighttime. It's like now all of a sudden at the dentist chair during daylight, it comes about.
Mm.
And the first reaction from us is no, 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 because there's something that is
Trying to
possible.
hide it.
Yes. So a lot of times, that energy of anger, well, anger is just a symptom of something. It's a symptom of something. So something has taken place that has made the person angry. And a lot of times, like I can talk about myself. So what has happened to me, as a child, this just always, we can go back to these examples. So there was shame involved. And in that experience, there became anger. But I had to hide the anger because if I bring the anger for it, I'm going to have to bring that shame for it too. So if I hide the anger, I can hide the shame. And shame is always in hiding. Like the moment you bring the shame forward, it doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just interesting how our body, we have said this before, our body remembers everything, but we work so hard in keeping it hiding in our body. So we'd rather develop a sickness, a disease, than to bring forward those memories and incidents and traumas or whatever they are that are hooked to these shame or guilt or anger or whatever it is. We'd rather keep it in hiding and create that disease. And our Western culture is very supportive of this because they have become with this whole big industry supporting us to keep those incidences in hidden, and they want to treat the symptoms and not go to the core of the problem. So they give us all these medicines that are going to create us even more sickness. So we'll never get to the core of the things. And this is something that makes me angry.
Oh yeah,
So
baby.
yes, yes, yes.
Now
So
we're talking.
whole nother topic, right? Maybe we can talk about this. And, that's why, for example, I am very into the frequency therapy, because that to me goes to the root of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The other day I had a headache and I had to ask myself, well, do I want to take ibuprofen or Tylenol? And my first reaction is like, no, because it stays in my body. So it actually gets energy stuck in my body, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with me. Nobody has to agree with me. But so it gets my energy stuck, or not even my energy. It brings a new energy, the Tylenol, ibuprofen. It doesn't leave my body. It doesn't transmit. But when I give myself a frequency therapy, a low frequency energy that hits that headache, the frequency of the headache, and can transmit that energy, it took away the headache and there's nothing left in my body.
Wow.
So it's the flow of the energy. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about that for a whole other topic yet again, right? Like frequency and no, I love that. It just happened to me. You know what I love about what you're saying? It's also, and what I would like to add to that, it's like I hate taking medicines and I never take them if I absolutely don't have to. Um, just like I was sick last month and I went to see the doctor and he was like, oh, like your neck looks like your throat looks so swollen. Take this and take this. And like it was Sunday and I was, living in these beautiful mountains that you can see in the picture. And like the pharmacies were closed. And I was like, okay, like screw that. Like I'm not gonna So I just went home and I just did my meditation and I put on, my little frequency device on like some, biodefense and all that. And the next day I was totally fine. And I was like, what's going on here? But it's like with the medicine, you're right. Like you're sort of like, like you're staying in that low frequency and you're like, oh, like I hate disease, I hate this pain, go away. It's like you're really meeting that with that very low frequency, right? It's like you're just like in that hate and you're like, I hate you disease, I hate you pain, like go away. Whereas, so this is something, so we talked about emotion, that it's actually like energy and motion, but I also want to talk about pain. Because pain, we can say, is pay attention in the now. Pay attention in the now, right? Like pain, just like everything, like the human body is so incredibly.
Can you go back to what is the P?
Pain.
Oh.
Pain. Sorry. Pain is pay attention in the now.
Oh, pay attention in the now. I love that. I've never heard of that actually. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Because pain, like just like, the human body is so goddamn intelligent. It can heal anything. Like you can, you can like imagine just like how it creates life. It's like it knows exactly how to create another human being. It's like when a woman is like nursing a child, like somehow like from the nipples, like the body of the mother knows from the saliva of the child what substances like the child needs, and then the next batch of like the of the milk is created exactly to the needs of the child. Like the body is just so intelligent, and so I just don't understand how we can think that we can outsmart the body with like pills and stuff and like numbing it down. Like no, we can't. Like everything happens for a reason, right? And so pain is there also for a reason. Like we don't have to have pain, but we have pain so that it brings our attention to something that is not functioning in the body, right? And it can be on a physical level, but it can also be on an emotional level, because otherwise, like, on the physical level, what we can at least see or like, notice if like my leg is hurting or there's a bruise or like it's, it's stuck, like I can see that, I can perceive that. But like if like there's a psychological scar, like the body is limited in communicating that to us, right? So it's like usually how it communicates to us is with physical sensations and like physical symptoms, because it has no better way, right? Unless like you have a nightmare in the middle of the night or whatever, like, it's trying to communicate with you, but then we just like, oh, I'm just crazy, or like, oh, it's just a stupid nightmare because I'm, we just tend to discredit it, right? Because we just, again, we don't want to believe that. And so the body is always communicating with us. So it's like with pain, like I want to pay attention, like, okay, it's like, I'm not going to say that if I'm dying in pain, like I'm going to always be like the best spiritual person ever and just like sit through all of my pain. But honestly, sometimes that's the best thing you can do, because you're really just like trying to tune in, is like, okay, my body is really trying to tell me something. Like, what do I need to listen to? Like, what am I ignoring? What do I not know? Like, what do I need to turn my attention to? Right?
Absolutely. We come back to that. Stop, look, and listen. That is so important. Our lives are so busy. So we tend to just, again, we say this over and over again, we tend to focus on the outside, but we need to come back towards the inside to listen. And especially when we have chronic diseases, chronic symptoms of certain things, like, the throat. So this is where our vocal cords are. So a lot of times, any symptoms with our jaws, our mouth, our throat has to do with communication. So we have been smothered many times to communicate our own authentic self. That, maybe we have tried to bring forth some energy of anger, like you said in the beginning, the children are being hushed, you can't express yourself in certain ways. And so we have learned to close that energy. And where does it close? So a lot of times that closes in our throat, or our mouth, so there's this energy that gets built up. And it is, again, one way to protect ourselves, to be included into the society, to be accepted, to be loved, and so forth. So it's just a pattern of, it used to be maybe even a pattern of survival, maybe generations past. Maybe if you had spoken out, somebody might have killed you, generations past, and even somewhere today. So those are just, legitimate things. It's not like, well, why did you do that? You should have been a bigger person. No, it's just a form of survival sometimes. And then we go on from generations to next generations with those same patterns, because it is an energetic exchange. There's always an energetic exchange from one generation to the other. And awareness, coming back to that awareness that once we just talk about these things and we come to that place of stop, look, and listen, and we get curious and we ask questions, and we can even talk to the throat, we can talk to the jaws, we can ask those jaws to reveal the insights that are hidden in them. And we create that space just to be there with no attachment. We're just there with compassion, just offering that space, offering that compassion, offering that time. And all of a sudden you notice that, hey, I am in this moment right now. And when you have pain, turn towards the pain. And you might get a slight idea of, just go and get something, go get garlic from the kitchen, or, go do this or go do that. Those may be just really slight messages that very subtle little messages that you might even question in your mind, that why would I need to go do that? What is that going to help? But if you start listening to your body knows how to heal itself.
Yeah.
And your body knows what it needs from the nature, from your kitchen, rest, maybe taking just a leave of sickness, maybe just stopping everything around you for a moment, maybe writing a letter, voicing yourself out, whatever it is. But whatever is in your body, the further away we go away from our body using artificial medicines and I'm not talking about, somebody who's in danger and somebody who's healing from fractured bones and stuff like that. I'm more so talking about chronic things that people are not even getting help from the medical industry, because the medical industry doesn't really know what's going on. It's psychosomatic. It's much deeper in the frequencies. Like Einstein said, when we start understanding, when the medical industry starts understanding that the whole human health has to do with energies and frequencies, that's when we have a breakthrough. But we already know this. Yes. So we don't have to wait for the medical industry. They are getting there, but it may take too long for some people. So Yeah, just raising awareness to that. We actually have everything that we need to start getting more empowered within our own bodies.
Yeah. You're right with the frequencies. I mean, yeah, Einstein said it, right? Tesla said it. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, try to understand it in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. But also, even apart from that, like basically biology, like medicine is applied biology. Biology is applied chemistry, and chemistry is applied physics, right? So, it's all in the physics, right? Like everything's in the physics, but yeah, like, we people may know that both me and you work with like frequency devices that, can be very helpful. But even, aside from that, for people who are not ready to dive into that whole area, it's just like working with your own energy, and your like awareness is energy, right? Like it's with your own awareness and with your own intention, like that, again, that's energy. Where your intention goes, your energy goes, your blood flows, right? Like where your intention goes, that's where your blood flows. Like you can literally just like focus on, sensation in your body, and you're going to have more blood flow there, more energy, and blood is healing, right? So we're going to have to stop in a minute, but I just want to again like speak like a little bit to like before we close, to like if some of you, like some of our listeners, really have some sort of a physical issue, just like try to like ask yourself, what is that body part connected to? Or like how would you define it? Like if it's stuckness, if it's like stiffness, like where am I stuck? Like do you feel like like where are you not advancing? Like if it's the jaw, it could be like self-expression, like right around if you have throat issues, neck issues, jaw, like what are you like holding on to? What do you need to release from your throat, your mouth? What do you need to, maybe it's like the anger is because, like, I'm saying anger because it's like when you're like stopping yourself from screaming or saying something that you need to say, right? It's like you're just blocking it here, so like it wants to leave your body, right? Like if it's in your digestion, like again, what are you not digesting? If you're constipated, it's like what are you not letting go of? Because like things want to leave, they want to leave forever and be flushed into nothingness, and you're holding on to them, right? Like what are you not letting go? What are you trying to so badly hold within your system? Or like if it's like so many women nowadays have like health issues with their reproductive organs. It's like we've been living in this patriarchy for like generations and generations, and like so many women are like completely obliterating, like forgetting and like disowning their femininity, right? And like they don't want to have periods because it's bothering them, and then they're surprised like, oh, like my periods are not coming, or they're irregular, or they're problematic. It's like whatever you're disowning or like repressing or suppressing or not allowing might be causing physical issues.
Yes, and Google is always a great one, just
Always a good
Google.
resource just to
Yes,
get started, just to get some ideas, right? Like you don't have to read
yes,
and like, oh my God, but you can just get curious and just, get inspiration if
curiosity.
anything
Yes.
resonates. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly. Whatever resonates, whatever you can. Many times I just go Google the spiritual purpose of arm ache.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what's been going on.
Yeah.
So understanding, beyond all things, seek understanding. It's a good place to stop here, our friends. Thank you for joining us. And we hope you have a beautiful week and hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.